This episode of Indie Mogul is brought to you by Epidemic.
This, I always called the Death Star sequence for Bohemian Rhapsody.
This was
because if this didn't
giant
work, the film was done. It was over. It would be a disaster. It's just amazing how emotional a song like "We Are the Champions," because of context, is in this movie. It's so emotional. It makes you want to cry.
What's going on, Indie Mogul? Today I'm here with a legendary editor and composer, John Ottman. John Ottman's amazing. He did movies such as The Usual Suspects, he did the X-Men series, Superman Returns, and of course, most recently winning the Oscar for Bohemian Rhapsody. Amazing work and amazing artist here. And today we're going to talk a little bit about music and editing, specifically with the movie Bohemian Rhapsody. We got 3 scenes here that are going to be picked from our editing team. We're going to go through each one with the editing, with the composing, and the story for each of them and walk through of the scenes. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Let's do this. First scene, here we go. Okay, so this is the scene, of course, where Freddie Mercury is first starting to work on Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. This is where it's been ruminating in his head for quite a while. It's one of my favorite scenes in the film because a lot of it's non-scripted and tons of actor improv, which makes it real.
Yeah.
But the improv necessarily is not put together in any sort of natural order. You'll have an actor, they'll come up with a line, talking to an actor who's not there, so you have to sort of editorially kind of almost like re-script it out in the editing room and then come up with wild lines as an answer to someone's off-the-cuff remark or do a pickup, whatever. And so that's what the sequence became, but it's very real because A, the actors already have this great chemistry among each other, and so they can play off each other's improvs. Like this joke that Freddie just gave me, that was never in the script.
Play it like you wrote it.
Well, I did. I wrote that part.
Taking the piss.
Okay.
For this type of scene, what drove the pacing?
Well, it certainly wasn't the music because it's basically they're piecing it together. So it was mainly camaraderie and fun. And so I saw that as a great opportunity. So if I could bring the audience on board and how they're getting along with each other now, it'll be even more devastating later when they're not getting along, and more snappy it could be with their improv moments, like that one there.
Put your body into it.
Right, okay. Put my body into it. I got it.
Not like that.
No, I got it.
That was the main thing for me, is the more fun we're having, the more fun you see them having with each other, the better it's going to be later for the story. I knew this had to build and build and build and become crazier and crazier with the Galileos, Well, this was one of the things I love doing, and so futzing the control room mics and so forth and creating those relationships back and forth.
One more. Again. Go on, roll the track. Who even is Galileo?
One of the painful parts is when you spent so much time on the Avid weaving sounds and your relationships between dialogue and so forth. So then when you go to the final, the real dub, it's like the spool gets unraveled and you spend all that time just trying to get it back to kind of what you did before, but hopefully better, The improvement, of course, was putting the Galileos and the surrounds and so forth, The sound design was not that extensive compared to like an X-Men movie or something,
Of course.
But still, this was one of those few scenes where I could do stuff like that.
Alrighty, so moving on, this is the We Will Rock You scenes. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, this was one of the few musical sequences that still tells a story because it's been set up that Brian May has this idea about including the audience, and that's what Queen really was all about. But I didn't really do a montage of external things. It's basically all We Will Rock You. The agony of doing these scenes is I knew, it has to be f***ing amazing. It has to, you want people.
People are coming to
really
the theater for this
it.
Scene. There are people that are coming for this.
Exactly. So I cut the whole thing together, the concert that's coming up, and it was cool, snazzy, and I had the second unit go out and shoot, the foot stamping and all that kind of stuff. But this scene hadn't been shot yet. And so I had the whole thing cut together, my little vignettes of Freddie in the dark and all that stuff. And then they shot this, I'm like, oh, I need to integrate some of this. So you have to have objectivity in your own work, and where what I had created was really good, but it was better when I integrated stuff from the previous scene. And so there's these little moments like right here. And this helps tell the story, like there's more and more. And so you're integrating the setup to the scene with the scene itself. And it makes this much more exciting because it's the fruition of what his plan was. You know? We did cut this down here and there. The biggest challenge was how to cut down iconic music that everyone knows and not notice it. I mean, so that's really hard. If the audience even smelled that it felt like a montage, it would collapse because it had to feel like a real-time experience that you were there. And the moment you didn't feel that, it would have been an absolute disaster. But I had to cut bars out, moments out of the music, and find ways of masking it so that even the diehard Queen fan wouldn't mind.
Real quick, explain what a bar is, of course.
Oh, a bar is another word for is a measure. In in music, you see all these you see 4 notes in one bar and 4 notes in another bar, and the challenge is to make it invisible. Sometimes the visuals in conjunction with your cut can trick you into buying it. But you have to when you're cutting down the music, of course, you have to do it on the beat. And so when I say about cutting bars or cutting measures out, you meant to make sure it's musically has musical integrity by cutting on the beat. And also, I had the extra stems, tracks of the song. So if for some reason I did truncate and a melody line's coming in too fast, I might be able to erase that melody line.
You can pull out the melody line altogether.
One of my major mantras for the sound people on this movie was, again, like Brian May is saying, audience participation. And we were really a little afraid that when we went doing the final mix, that the band would feel freaked out that we were masking a lot of the music by the sounds of the audience. But fortunately, they were on board. Because in this scene, you gotta hear everyone clapping. The moment that you start hearing the audience, that's when it starts working. Literally, as great as the music is, when we just play the music, it was just boring. And it's testament to what their plan was it works because of the audience.
Singing, we will rock you. We will rock you.
Before we move on, real quick, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Epidemic, which is this episode's sponsor. Now, throughout the episode and throughout a lot of episodes, actually, we've been using Epidemic royalty-free music because guess what? It's super easy for creators like us to find music that we're looking for and fit it into the edit. And now that you know what stems are, guess what? Epidemic actually lets you listen to stems in the player itself, which is one of the things I haven't seen a lot of online music libraries do. Now, obviously, John does not use a service like Epidemic. However, we do, and we use it all the time. And that's specifically because it's not really possible for us to hire a composer for all the YouTube and content that we do. Epidemic actually starts at about $15 a month for the creator's license, which is good for pretty much 30,000 plus music tracks, which is probably more music than you're ever going to need in your life. So if you're interested, make sure you click on the link in the description down below to get a free month of Epidemic. And for Indie Mogul viewers that are watching and want to use music just the same way that we do, you can actually use the promo code Indie Mogul within the next 2 weeks for an additional free month of your subscription. But back to the episode. All right, so moving on, we're doing, of course, our last scene for the movie, the Live Aid concert here.
This kept me up at night for a year because this is the first thing we shot. It's basically its own little movie. It's telling a story, as all these sequences are, but this is the ultimate example of that. Perhaps the last big moment he gets with this audience that truly loves him to death. The brilliance of the movie, which is a little fudging of the truth, is he never really told the band he had AIDS before Live Aid. But the brilliance of that is by telling them in this movie prior to this, it makes this even more emotional. The challenge with this, I don't know where to begin, the challenge of this sequence was designing it in such a way where it grew emotionally as it went along. This song alone, I could have pulled out all the stops, done a billion shots of the audience and, had it super loud but then it would have no place to go. You just hope people stick with it long enough to get there. Like, hey, no, it's gonna get even bigger and bigger. Really, it is,
Yeah. But that's that tension you're talking about, is playing it slow in the beginning, very quiet coverage in the beginning when they walk out, and then it gets huge.
My first version of the scene, I showed the audience a lot more in the first couple songs, and it was cool, but it was $5 million over budget, and so I'm like, well, I'll cut back and I'll save the audience, but so that ended up dramatically working better for the sequence, because by staying on stage intimately with them and sort of building it, by the time you're at the end, I could pay for even more amazing shots at the end that were more epic. One of the producers, Dennis O'Sullivan, who was Graham King's right-hand man, went out and shot out some stuff to cut to, and he very brilliantly shot a bunch of extras in this bar. The best thing he did was to show the bar empty first, and where the few people are watching Live Aid, and then more people are in there. So then I could cross-cut all the people clapping and so forth with the bar. It just shows that people outside
are filling up seats,
engaged in Live Aid. It's a phenomenon that's happening everywhere, and that really helped push the emotional element of it.
What was driving the rhythm in this one?
Not to sound artsy fartsy, but it was the emotions is what dictated how this got cut. You know, moments like or an actor moments that you just had to see on the screen, basically. You know?
Yeah.
There was a push to cut this song in half. And I'm like, but the reprise of the song where it repeats itself is where it becomes so emotional. And he gets up off that stage and repeats the song and everyone's singing. It's like, if you haven't heard that before already, it's never gonna have the impact. So in a Hail Mary to protect this, I took a bazooka and blew apart another song and cut 2.5 minutes out of it. And when I listened to this as a kid on the radio, I never wanted to cry listening to We Are the Champions.
Yeah. It sounds like a beating my chest type of just whatever tough guy song.
But it's the imagery, the shots, his performance, and the audience, and the context of what this all means for him and he's gonna die. It all comes together to make it so emotional. I don't think anyone will ever hear the song the same way again after this movie. They were smart to end the concert with that, thank God.
Well, thank you so much for joining us,
sure.
of course. Absolutely amazing editor and composer, John Ottman. Seriously. Freaking sweet to hear all of the kind of understories and currents and work they got put into this
I've got
movie.
all sorts.
Oh, I believe it. I'm sure we only scratched the surface. Of course, we did have a podcast, though, where we talked about the movie a little bit more full. We also talked about how you got into filmmaking. So, of course, if you guys are interested in watching that, you can check that out on the podcast link down below. But, John, thank you so much for joining us.
All right.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. So there you have it, guys. A music editing breakdown with the legendary John Ottman. I want to give a huge shout out to John for actually joining us on the show. Also, don't forget about our sponsor, Epidemic. Make sure you go down to the link down below. Find a free trial for Epidemic's music library, as well as an additional month if you use that coupon code IndieMogul. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Ted. This is Indie Mogul. And of course, we'll catch you guys next time.
This was difficult. It's all exposed. And it's all about the music. Where if it's film music or a score,
It's underneath dialogue.
it's buried
underneath
under sound effect.
effects.
You know, put a big car explosion where you want to cut the music.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I'm more the proponent of that. Where my music editor is like, I can't do that. It's not musically correct. Like, I don't give a shit. It's under a car explosion.